Ooh, that looks tasty.
Welcome folks, today the Hungry Gamer is back with another mini preview, and today we're talking about Speedcicleta from Sapient Ape Games. And now this is a game that has a few days left on crowdfunding right now, and I wound up with a copy of this when Manic Mark, friend of the channel, reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you know anything about this? Can you get a copy of this?" Because he is a huge cyclist, and he's such a big-time cyclist, I actually said, okay, I'll reach out and see if I can get this, only if you will be the one to play it with me and help me review this game, because he knows about cycling, I do not. So he'll be coming in at the end to talk about the game and the theme and what he likes and all those things at the end of this. And right now, I'm just going to give you a super fast rundown of what the game is. And as you can guess, it's about cycling, except this is more about road racing rather than like your Flamme Rouges, which are on a course and on a track. This is on road racing, kind of riding through the hills and all of those things and dealing with animals and cars and all of that. And so what happens is you're going to have a hand of cards, and on your turn you can either play a card or you can discard cards and then draw back up to your hand limit. That's it. But what the cards are going to do is they're either going to move you X amount of spaces forward, depending on what the card says, or it will be something that will affect the other player. So you might play a flat tire card on them. You might play a crash card on them. And the way those are going to work is basically they're going to be just out of it for 4 turns. And it's got a single card there, and it'll just kind of rotate it around for 4 whole turns, which sounds punishing, and it is punishing. Except in the deck, there's also a bunch of cards that can just instantly negate that, and there's also cards that you can just play and it fixes it. So you crash, you can just play a first aid card, get rid of it, and you've really only lost 1 turn or whatever it may be. The other thing that you'll be dealing with is sometimes out of the deck there will be some kind of hazard. It might be a car or a pedestrian or an animal. And the way the animals work is, for the most part, you have to build up enough kind of momentum. You can play your movement cards out in front of you, and when you have enough, then you can move. It's kind of like you're going all the way around them or something like that. And the vehicles, they're going to start at the beginning of the board, and every turn they're going to move closer and closer to you as they are driving along. And if they get to you or past you, you actually move backwards a few spaces. And the pedestrians, they're going to be walking towards you, and as they get closer and closer to you, it just becomes something where you have to spend a little more movement to get around them. The first person to finish the entire course will be the winner. So, with that said, what do we like about this game? And to figure that out, I had to call on the heavy hitters because, well, I do know how to ride a bike. And I have ridden a bike on the road before. And like once a month just about, I ride my bike to work. That's like 3 miles. So that does not count for any of this. So I brought in friend of the channel, Manic Mark, who is the most ridiculous bike person I know. And if I am correct, has literally biked like 10,000 miles or something like that. So, Mark, tell us a little bit before we jump, just so people understand the level of your expertise here about cycling. Tell us a little bit about that.
Thanks, Will. My name is Mark. Like Will said, I'm a cyclist. I bike commute every day, about 10 miles total. But I think what he's hinting at is in 2010, I sent off and did a cross the United States bicycle trip solo, which was 4,700 miles ended up being. And biking is such a large part of my life. I work for a travel company where we do cycling trips, and so it's fun, always fun to find a new game that incorporates cycling into
Now,
it.
before we jump, now you're burying the lead here. He made a movie about
That's true.
biking across the country, and my understanding is to get those shots, because you did it yourself, you actually kind of had to do the biking twice.
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
what is this movie? And can people still see this movie?
Yeah. So it's called Bike Against the Wind, and it's a documentary, coming of age documentary. And yeah, I would have to set up the camera on a tripod and make sure the angles are right or however I want the shot, and then bike past it and then, but I sometimes I wanted this really wide shot, especially like in the Western United States where it's like big and beautiful. And so I would have to bike way off into the distance and then turn around and bike all the way back up. I tried not to put it at the top of a hill, but yeah, I biked 5,000 miles instead of 4,700. So
Yeah, and so just my only real question I have about this, always amazing me. So, but what was the hardest part of the country? Like, I have to assume it was like the Rockies or something. But like, what
mm.
was the hardest part? Was it maybe it was like the desert or the cold or I don't know.
Yeah, well, so it's a good question. So physically hard, it honestly was within the first week, just because my body hadn't built up the muscles. Like I trained sort of for it, but like the Catskills, where so I started in Boston, but when you get into Western Massachusetts and Connecticut, the hills and the roads, because they're all old roads, they're all like straight up, straight down, straight up, straight down. And so that was really difficult for my body to adjust. And then the other really hard physical part was getting over the last mountain in California before I ended in San Diego. And that was really hard because at 11 in the morning, it was 110 degrees out. And I was going 6 miles up a 7% grade hill, and I have video. I have video of me. I had a GoPro and I just had it mounted on my handlebars, and I started just being delirious and drooling and be like, "Oh, I can get up this mountain. It'll be okay."
In the back of your head,
uh,
you're thinking like, "Oh, this is gonna be such good footage.
it's
I
gonna be
look so
so
good."
good. I got to keep going. Yeah, yeah. But the with these like long journeys, especially doing it solo, the toughest part I think is the psychological part. Just being alone, or just dealing with your own demons if you got them, kind of thing. Of just figuring out why you're doing it, and like justifying it to yourself. Because I left a relationship, I left a good, Boston was going great for me. And so I kind of, as I was going, especially weirdly in Georgia and Florida was where it kicked in. I was like, why am I doing this?
Yeah, my
uh,
question, why did you go from Boston to Florida? And then like that's not how
it,
maps work, man.
yeah, I know. Well, it was 2010, and I don't know if you remember 2010, but there's a lot of political issues going on and social issues going on. And so I wanted to learn a little bit more about my fellow countrymen in the South, because all of it was hearsay and via other medias. And so I really wanted to go into the South and meet people and learn about people. And then, unfortunately, what the BP oil spill happened while I was biking, and so people were like, "Oh, you got to go to Florida and see the white sand beaches before they turn black," which they didn't, obviously. But that kept me going south. I originally wasn't going to go to Florida, and then I wanted to go to Louisiana. I wanted to go to New Orleans, and I had some friends there, and so that was kind of my goal. I when I set out, I didn't have a set time of when I would be finished. Like I could have just kept going if I wanted to. So,
No, you couldn't have. You were
no,
done.
again, I was done. I was done.
So the last thing before we talk about the game,
Yeah.
where can people see this? And I assume there's a link. There'll be a link. I'll put it down in the description, everybody. Where can people watch this video where at some point you regret all the choices that you made to get you to that point? Where can we see that?
Yeah, it's on Vimeo, and it's also going to be on YouTube coming up in this next month. But it's an hour long. It's definitely a piece of art from 2010, and I'm happy to talk to anybody that is interested in doing these types of trips. They're wonderful for people that want to do it. So,
All right, so
um,
there's a link down in the description. You can check that out. But we told you all of that to talk about Speedcicleta, as I think I was pronounced. And
yeah, yeah.
part of it, this is a bicycle racing game, as I explained before, but it has that very road race. Like you're very much kind of going up and down mountains and crap, just racing against somebody. So Mark turned me on to this game to check out and was able to get a prototype. And so, kind of just jumping right in, thematically, as a cyclist who knows things, how did the game do for you?
Well, I think one of the strengths of this game that is different from a lot of the other cycling games, is that it did incorporate more of the like cross country cycling, or the more so it, it incorporated animals in the road and dealing with cars, and which a lot of cycling games are more closed racing or track cycling, that sort of thing. So that was a really fun, something that I thought was unique and interesting, to have to deal with those things that kind of, you do run. I ran into wild animals while I was biking across the country, and you have to figure that out, or like biking on freeways and having trucks pass you and literally push you, and this game kind of
Oh,
accounts
so
for
it really
that.
does push you. So in the in
Yeah.
the game, if a car passes you, you go back a space, but like you really get moved.
Yeah, you do. It's not necessarily backwards, but especially when semi trucks pass you. Like, I only rode on the freeway when I had to, because it's illegal otherwise. But in like Texas and New Mexico, where there's barely any other street roads, when semis pass you on those roads, they they're forced. They're so big, the wind pushes you sideways, and then if they have a gap underneath, if they don't have those fins underneath between their tires, the wind sucks you towards them. So it's like this back and forth push. So
Are you making that? That's terrifying.
no, I swear, I swear, it's totally true. I do not recommend it. 0 stars. 0 stars.
So that is as mechanically, that was one of the things I actually enjoyed about the game because there is
Yeah,
a little bit of a, you feel like, well, you get ahead, you're going to be able to stay ahead, but the obstacles as they come up mechanically, you have to, it maybe pushes you back, or like with the animals, as you were saying, you have to figure out your way to navigate them. It kind
yeah,
of builds that up. It's, you have to build up, X amount of momentum or whatever they call it, numbers to get around it. And so it's kind of taking that in, and so that's kind of cool to me to hear that. Well, that does actually make sense. But
yeah, yeah.
what else you got?
Um, I really enjoyed the modular, the modules, the little hexagons to be able to create the track. Because I mean, to relate it to my experience with cross country biking, is like the roads are all over the place. They can be swervy, they can be straight. So to be able to build your own track, it's always a fun attribute, and this one incorporates that, which is
Y-
great.
Yeah, it also let us control the length of the game. Well, one of
Yeah.
the things that I enjoyed, and this will be something that I'm gonna talk about later as well, is it's got a very much a kind of take that nature of it. It's like, oh, you crashed. Oh, and
Yeah.
everybody, I just have to say this. Poor Mark has just recently recovered from a crash. Like I didn't know this. He just told us, and like 10 minutes later, I was like, "You crashed. You crashed again."
It was perfect. That was a perfect thematic element in my life.
Yeah. But so it has this, and this is your catch up. So you're
Mhm.
playing one card a turn, and you're throwing down you got a flat tire or you crashed, and there's a plethora of cards that can negate those or make you speed up and keep going. But that's kind of the core way to kind of mitigate the luck. Is like, well, I don't have many fast moving cards, but I have a lot of ways to slow you down. But of course, you
Mhm.
play that and you're not moving. How did that play for you? Because that's a little less thematic. I'm not making you crash. Hopefully,
I felt like it pulled from a really great game. That this idea pulled from, if anybody's played the racing game Millborn, which is a card game where you're trying to get a certain distance, and you put flat tires and all that sort of stuff on other people, and so it pulls that same style of which is really great. I think that was fun. I do think that it also, when we played it 2 player, I think it wasn't as effective. I feel like if there were 3 or 4 players, I think we would have it would have been a lot more dynamic in the, oh, you get a flat, and then this person flats me or this person crashes me. I think it would be more dynamic if we had more players.
Yeah, it's something that I was gonna do. We'll talk about later. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's at two players. And full disclosure, the campaign's already going. When we got this, we played two players. This is very much a first impressions. But yeah, I think being able to, because whenever I got one, I knew it was coming at you. Like
yeah.
that's what was going to happen. But there's three or four players, then it's like okay, kind of spreading those things around. I think could be a little more interesting. The one thing that I really like, just the look of it, is
Mm,
the animals,
yeah,
getting the animals out there and the moose.
yeah.
Like I'll put a picture up on the screen right now. That moose was ridiculous.
It was so ridiculous.
Just kind of blocking everything.
I mean,
But
it's totally true though. Like I ran into a moose in my travels, and it block. You stop. You do not move forward. You do not do anything until the moose chooses to get out of the way. And so the game represents that pretty well.
where did you run into a moose?
It wasn't in the cross country travels, but when I was living in New Hampshire, I was just biking around and there was moose out there.
Yeah, it doesn't stop. So I liked that, and I liked how the cars and the truck and the bus, they would start way at the back, and they would slowly be kind of catching up to you, and then it would push you back. And there's a little bit of this kind of balance of, okay, well, I know the car's coming. It's going to get to me. It's going to push me back. So I'm going to wait until it does
Yeah,
that. Or, I'm going to try to keep ahead of it. And then the same thing with the pedestrians that were going the other way, which you kind of had to time it out so you weren't wasting your movement and things like that.
yeah.
All said, I think we had a good time with it.
Mhm.
What are your quibbles with it? I've already kind of alluded to some of mine. One being, I think it's going to play better at three or four.
Yeah.
I think I did not allude to this, but the building of the track I thought was really cool. I
Mhm.
really wish there had been something that was like you're going uphill on
Yeah.
this one, so it's harder. Or now you're going downhill. Those kinds of things. I think there's maybe a little bit of missed opportunity there to have a little more dynamism in the track. There are the intersections, which are basically just you have to stop and wait for like cross traffic or whatever.
Mhm.
But I think there's maybe some opportunity in there for that. That's kind of the main thing for me that I feel maybe is missing because it's otherwise you're playing cards, you're moving, and you're just trying to get through as fast as you can and maybe sabotage some people. But
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I felt like kind of two things. So the first thing was I know that we were playing on a prototype, so I'm sure that things will change or could alter. But I felt like the track itself was so small, and with all of the different pieces, the cyclist, the car, the all of that, it it was too much, too many things for the little road. And so if the road was expanded and you could have all the pieces that could fit on the road, and that way you could also incorporate what, like in the game Flamme Rouge, which is another cycling game, they incorporate elevation and decline, and the energy to get up that. And so I think there's a little bit of design that could get better, um, by just enlarging the roads a little bit more, and I think it would also like fit the pieces a little bit more too.
and
So
worth
that's
repeating, even though Mark just said, this was a prototype, everybody, so it's
yeah,
completely possible that is already something that's been taken care of. Again, this is
exactly.
just a first impressions.
Yeah, and then the second thing was I kind of wanted, because of all the different elements in it, I kind of wanted just a little bit more strategy built into it. And maybe that happens when you have more players because you do have to choose a little bit more of who you're trying to punish. But I felt, kind of like midway through it, I felt like I was just drawing a card, and the card, I didn't really have too many choices. Like
Yeah,
I
toward
just was like,
in the two-player game, there definitely was a little bit towards it's like, well, you have already got the ability to ignore. I had the ability to ignore flat tires, I think is what I had. So
yeah,
every time you drew that, well, though, that's just a dead card.
yeah,
And there is the ability to where you can discard cards and redraw instead of playing a card. That is a thing that's built in there. But as you're saying, with multiple players, you could play that flat tire on somebody else. So
yeah.
yeah, I agree with that. So all that being said, though, kind of wrap this up. Did you have fun playing?
Yeah, I it was a joyful game. I think that like the dynamic of all of the different attributes to it, and kind of the little silly caricatures of the animals and the moose coming in and all that. It had a
It's
lot of
slightly
dynamic.
dark. The only way to get rid of the moose, y'all, is if the bus comes by. Like, which I have to. Like,
Yeah. Um, and so I enjoyed all those different elements, and I think I as far as I know, it's the only cycling game that is like cross country racing. So it was fun. And it was a quick, fun game to play cycling that involves cycling.
yeah, no, we were the game that we played. I think it was maybe 20 minutes because I had stopped and looked up a few things.
Yeah.
So really, really quick. But so there you have it, folks. From the expert cyclist, Mr. 10,000 plus miles, 10,000 plus tiers. I'm guessing. I don't know.
So many tiers, so many
uh,
flat tires.
yeah. So everybody, go check out down in the description. One link to Speedcicleta. You can check that out. You can get yourself a copy if you're interested. There should be a few days left on the campaign when this video posts, and also Bike Against the Wind.
Bike Against the Wind.
Yeah,
Yep.
not bike into it. You don't want to do that. You want to bike against it. It
Yeah.
is competitive. It is adversarial. So check that out. It's ridiculous. I just can't fathom why you would do that to yourself. But here we are. I'm glad you did, because otherwise you wouldn't be here playing this game with me. Now, usually I only do this on the podcast, but since this is a special moment, Mark, leave us with your gaming words of wisdom. I did not let him
Ooh,
prepare for this. I just sprung it on him.
gaming words of wisdom. If you're playing against a 5-year-old, let them win maybe half the time. Don't always let them win.
How old is he going to get before you start just crushing him?
Oh, he's almost there. I think maybe like 2 more years, maybe 2 more years.
There you have, folks. If they're 7, crush them.
Crush them.
All right, but so Mark, thanks so much for taking the time. Thanks so much for recommending the game. Everybody, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share, maybe become a channel member. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thank you.